The Tolkien Road, Episode 163, The Hobbit, Chapter 15, The Gathering of the Clouds. Welcome in, everybody, to Episode 163 of The Tolkien Road. Today, we are talking about The Hobbit, Chapter 15, 1-5, The Gathering of the Clouds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Clouds
Are gathering, metaphorically speaking. Or
and literally.
Are they?
I think. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely been some
Both
clouds.
and.
There's definitely been some clouds gathering in, in where we live.
That's
for the rain.
Sure. Yep.
It's been nice because it was kind of hot.
It's
for a while.
been a little dry.
Yeah, it was dry and hot and everything. And
I could do without the humidity though.
In Tennessee and in a lot of the South, basically you get hot summer, and then it's like humid too, which is really like I've actually thought to myself, I think it would be easier to handle the heat
like
if it wasn't
dry
so humid.
heat.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm sure it comes with its own problems. I've never lived in a place where there's the dry heat. I know like in the Southwest it's more like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if here in Tennessee, it's just kind of heat that just feels like it sticks to you.
Yeah.
It's gross.
And just the air feels heavy.
Yeah.
Like you're swimming through air.
Right.
And I grew up with it. Growing up in Maryland, it's crazy humid all summer long.
Yeah.
But I still don't understand why in a landlocked state like Tennessee, like it makes sense in Maryland because there's all kinds of water. Mm-hmm. But there's like the only water we have in Tennessee are rivers.
Yeah,
so,
but when you're in a valley, I think it's and I'm not sure if we're technically in a valley, but we're
I think
close.
we are part of the Ohio River Valley.
No, it would be like the Cumberland River Valley.
No, it'd be like okay, fine.
There's lots of rivers around here.
That's true. There is the Cumberland River. Yeah.
And we're close to what's called the Harpeth River, too.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Enough about rivers and humidity.
We're talking about mountains today,
There's
people.
probably no humidity where the dwarves are right now.
I know. I was thinking about that. It sounds kind of pleasant.
It sounds really pleasant, except scary.
Pleasant and terrifying.
And terrifying.
At the same time.
That would be horrible to be terrified and in a humid climate.
And feel pleasant about it at
and
the same
feel
time.
pleasant about it.
Hey, remember, friendly neighborhood plug to go over to patreon.com/TolkienRoad and consider supporting us.
Yeah, please.
$1 per episode, or you can just set it, say like $1 and to one episode is my max per month, and all you do is $1. You can do it for minimum, or you can do more, right? That's the whole thing, right? Some people go with $5 per episode, right? And that's awesome, and don't even put a limit on it. So, there's other tiers too that you can go, and we're going to be working some to even, we're happy with how things are going there. Ever since we kind of started to recommit to Patreon, and so we're going to really start trying to do some more over there as well. And now's the time to get in on it. So, got some more cool stuff coming over there. Speaking of which, I want to announce that I'm planning on setting up a poll on our Patreon site for our patrons, for our current patrons, to vote on some different ideas for what long work we considered we do next on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
It's not necessarily going to be a binding poll, but it's going to help us think through, like, because we got some different options we've been throwing around, and I want to hear from our patrons, especially, right? What they'd love to see.
The ones that will support us.
Yeah, the ones that are supporting us financially. Mm-hmm. So because we appreciate them so much.
Very much.
Right?
Very much.
That's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Keeps the wind in our sails in a big way. We appreciate all the listeners, but the patrons, have kind of doubled, tripled down on their appreciation for the podcast, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Don't forget to head on over to patreon.com/TolkienRoad and see what's going on over there. Early access to episodes too. So this will be posted right after we're done here, and probably not for a couple more days on the podcast feed. So our patrons will get it first. And then if you're not ready yet to support us via Patreon, you can head on over to iTunes if you haven't yet, or whatever app you use to listen to the Tolkien Road, and leave us that 5-star rating and say some nice words about us over there, to drown out any bad things that people have said about us in the past, which doesn't happen very often, but give us that 5-star rating at least, and that'll help get the word out about the Tolkien Road. So
yeah.
Right on.
Good job keeping it short and to the point this time.
Trying to be brief.
Yeah, no, you're doing good. You're doing real good.
Thanks. I don't need you to tell me that.
I know, but I figured it
I'm
wouldn't
doing good.
hurt, you know. So if you know and then I tell you, that's like double goodness.
You just keep thinking that.
I do.
Okay.
I will.
All right. Latron Prime update.
Nothing.
We got nothing. Latron, come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing.
You were just teasing us with all this cool stuff for a while, and then it's just gone. It's gone quiet.
Yeah,
It's gone quiet.
just let us know you're out there, dude, and that you're okay.
Yeah.
Just drop us a short line.
Hello. Is there anybody in there?
In there.
Okay. Well, since we got nothing to say about Latron Prime,
I guess we'll just get to the whole point of the episode.
we'll just keep doing spontaneous a cappella versions of songs.
Oh, we could do that too.
Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. Sure.
or maybe not.
No.
Did you have one you wanted to do?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
We'll just do all of Pink Floyd's The Wall in an a cappella version, so that'll take up a good episode.
But it's gonna be all John because I know like none of the songs. Except that one that you just did.
We don't need no
that's Pink Floyd.
education.
That's right.
We don't need no. I could just keep going.
Yeah, you
I love that album so much. That album is so great.
Which album is it?
It's The Wall.
Oh, that's the name of the album.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Gotcha.
All in all, you're just another brick in the wall.
That's where it comes from, I guess.
Yes, the demonic child's chorus. So it used to terrify me when I was a child, but now I just find it really catchy. Funny how that works. All right.
Probably the bane of all educators out there.
I know. They're probably like, yes, you do need education, kids. You do need no education.
Dude, you do. No,
you need education because you're using a double negative when you sing.
Double negative, exactly. That just proves the point right there.
I know.
Because they're actually saying that they do need education.
The irony of that, right? Like, I wonder if that was intentional, or if they were just like, this sounds catchy, and they just put it that way, or if it was intentional to be like, we don't need no education, right? So,
well, what do you know about Pink Floyd?
Because the teachers are all like, well, I just want to point out that you've used a double negative, so technically you're saying I do need an education.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you're onto something.
Oh, man.
That would be I wouldn't put it past Pink Floyd. I think they would be totally
old Pink. I mean,
smart enough to do that.
That's how he rolls.
Yeah,
so.
I think that'd be great. And speaking of irony, I heard Isn't It Ironic by Alanis Morissette on the radio the other day. And I was listening to the lyrics like very carefully, and I was like, none of this is ironic.
Yeah.
None of it. Clearly, she had no idea what irony actually is.
No. Alanis has one on
it?
you, right? She's like,
She's
isn't it
being
ironic?
ironic?
And she's like, and she's thinking to herself, no, but you think it is.
But you think it is, and that is ironic.
That is the irony. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
See?
Wow.
Like, she had you fooled.
She did.
You're playing on this level.
Oh my gosh.
She's playing up here.
She is just 3 steps ahead of me.
That's why she's Alanis Morissette.
Oh my gosh.
And the rest of the world isn't.
Oh my gosh. I just got chills.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Boom.
My mind has been blown.
Boom.
Man.
So I respond to you, Greta, with, you don't need no education.
I guess I don't. Oh, wait. Yeah, I do.
Exactly. And
I
that's
do
why I
need
said
it.
you don't need no education.
Because I need to go back and be schooled on what irony actually is.
Man, we can just create rabbit trails out of the blue.
You are not
Some
kidding.
people are just like, would you guys just shut up and talk about
Shut
Tolkien?
up and talk about the chapter like you said you were going to.
All
I wonder
right.
how many listeners we've lost.
They're just like, I'm 163 episodes and you guys can't just cut to the chase. I'm done.
I'm going to go find another Tolkien podcast where they just talk about Tolkien, which that's fine, but we're more fun.
Yep.
So, anyway.
We're the best around.
Oh,
Nothing's
here we
gonna
go
ever
again.
keep. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best
around.
Name that movie.
Karate Kid.
Oh yeah.
Boom.
Heck yes. By the way, little plug for the show Cobra Kai.
Oh.
If you guys
so
aren't watching
good.
Cobra Kai, then you're wrong. Then you need
Wrong.
to
With a capital W.
You need to have no mercy on your soul.
Just go watch it right now.
Right.
Binge all the episodes of both seasons.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It is so good.
So amazing.
So good. If you liked the original Karate Kid movie, you will love this show. it is just, it's great. Go watch it.
Yeah.
All right. It kind of makes me want to just start doing little mini podcasts of Cobra Kai within our Tolkien Road episodes.
And then we'd have an excuse to go rewatch it all.
I know.
Oh, man.
I know there's already podcasts.
Could we
about
just
it
do
out
like a 5-minute segment? Like an
I don't wanna
opening
know.
segment?
No. That's not fair to do on a Tolkien podcast.
Okay. Well, maybe we
But
just
please,
need to have another one.
You guys totally need to watch it. And I would love to hear, though, if there's people out there who are listening who have watched Cobra Kai and what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe if we hear from enough people, maybe we'll just start our own Cobra Kai podcast.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be fun because then you just watch it. It's not as much preparation. You don't have to like.
No, you just got to watch it and talk about it.
You don't have to do the reading. You just watch. You just sit there.
I mean, it's like our movie review episodes.
Kind of.
Right? But
yeah.
more frequent and not quite as long because it's just an hour-long show instead of a 3-hour movie.
Heck yes.
All
All right. We're doing it.
Okay,
all right.
we are. We're
Hobbit
going.
chapter
Sorry.
15.
Here we are. Yep.
Okay.
The Gathering of the Clouds.
The Gathering of the Clouds. More like the Gathering of the Birds. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, so what's his name? The bird nerd that wrote to us like a couple weeks ago. Remember, he's an ornithologist.
Oh, ornithologist. Yeah.
Well, he calls himself a bird nerd. I wasn't trying to be.
I know. I was a little bit offended for him, but then I remembered he did call himself that.
Yeah,
It's
that's why.
John Rice.
John Rice. Okay.
He's the one that shared the picture of little baby Smaug with us. Cute little baby Smaug.
Right. Yes, him.
Right.
I was thinking as he came to mind as I was reading this chapter. I was like, man, I bet John really likes this chapter.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like it really like birds are front and center.
Yeah.
And they are like super cool.
I bet if anybody in the world can talk to birds, it's John.
That's John.
As an ornithologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be more into, like, I want to know more about birds.
It seems like, I mean, I know that like, I think your parents are kind of into looking into like birds.
Yeah. They got tons of feeders and woods.
They always have been. Like they've
Yeah.
always liked, they've
Yeah,
always set
they've
up like
always
bird
hung
feeders and everything.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then my grandparents were always into
Yes.
birds too.
Oh my gosh, they had the most beautiful birds.
It's a very popular activity.
Bird watching, it really
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I think it's gaining speed, actually.
I think it's always been.
Well, I think it's been, but I
At-
think it's
at
becoming
speed.
even more popular.
Yeah.
Like it seemed to be. I feel like it was maybe something that people did when they retired, you know. But now I feel like young people or younger people are actually getting into it too.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a really fun activity, like
Yeah.
to learn their songs and their different characteristics. Yeah. And when I go running, oh my gosh, I see some of the most beautiful birds. Just like that's my favorite thing about running outside is being able to look at the birds.
Yeah.
And then be like, I'll have to look that one up when I get home. I wonder what that is. But they're just so beautiful. They really are beautiful little creatures.
I agree.
And amazing.
We are in agreement on this point.
Yeah, we are. Okay.
I think you want to start a bird podcast in the middle of our Tolkien.
I think I do.
All right. So, yeah, the clouds, they be gathering as well as the birds are gathering. And Thorin says, so of course, we're coming back to the mountain after chapter 14, where it was all taking place in or around Lake Town with
the desolation of Smaug.
With Smaug attacking Lake Town and then being killed himself by Bard the bowman.
Right.
And so we're back to the mountain with Bilbo and the dwarves, and they notice that to the south something seems to be happening. There's all these birds gathering, and it seems unseasonable for them to be gathering so much. Right. There are starlings and flocks of finches, and far off there are many carrion birds, as if a battle were afoot. Right.
Now, carrion birds are like the birds of prey. Is that
no?
correct?
Carrion birds are like vultures. They're the one that eat.
That's what I mean. Like they're the ones that eat dead things.
Well, a bird of prey would be something that.
Well, like an eagle. Okay.
Like an eagle, but
well, that's what I meant, though. I meant the birds that, like the human.
Yeah, carrion.
I mean, not human. Nature's garbage disposals, right? Those are carrion birds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the gross birds that are always like eating roadkill and that kind of thing.
But our world would be so much dirtier and so much grosser without them.
I guess. I mean,
it'd
be an interesting topic to hear John Rice weigh in on. Actually,
well, why else would there be a Vulture Appreciation Day?
Is there a Vulture Appreciation Day?
It's the first Saturday of every September.
No kidding.
It's true.
I feel like we need to do a special episode with John on birds.
I think that would be awesome. Yes, we totally have reason to. I mean, birds are all through the Hobbit.
Maybe I'd have to think about how to really connect it well with Tolkien, but because there's lots, there are lots of birds, but I don't know. I think it would just be interesting to ask him like questions about like what he thinks about vultures and that kind of thing,
totally.
Because everybody, like, I see a vulture and I'm like, ugh, gross. I don't want to like honk my horn and like get him to go away, right? When I'm driving by.
Oh, I think he would have lots of good things to say about vultures. Yeah. I went to a bird show with the kids a few years ago at the library, and they actually had like birds and like live birds that flew in and stuff, and it was really cool. And by the end of that show, I was actually a fan of vultures.
Yeah.
Because they serve a very important purpose.
Right on.
I mean, you don't want them as a pet, but
Well, at all this, the thrush shows back up.
Yes, the thrush.
The thrush returns, and they're like, hey, there's the thrush. And they notice that the thrush seems to be trying to talk to them, right?
Right. But they can't understand them.
But they can't understand him. Balin is like, it looks like he's trying to speak, but I can't understand what he's saying. And then after that, a raven shows up, right? They see a bunch of ravens.
Well,
Bilbo thinks they're crows at first, right?
Well, the raven shows up after Balin says, I wish he were a raven.
Right.
Because Balin, remember Balin goes in like that whole stuff about ravens and how his people used to talk to them. And there was that old famous pair, Kark and his wife.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting that the raven, that the dwarves had this relationship with the ravens around the mountain. Just
like the men of Dale had the relationship with the thrushes.
Thrush. Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, there's this history of relationship between the dwarves and the ravens. And so, yeah, they're able to speak with the ravens and so they had this like good kind of almost friendship, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And again, he says, but I don't suppose that any of the ancient breed linger here now. But it turns out that one of them shows up and he says, and that he speaks to them basically in like plain speech, right?
Yeah, because Bilbo can understand him too.
Right. Which is kind of funny to think about, right? This bird just comes up to you and starts speaking.
Starts talking.
Like in normal speech. But nevertheless, he does. I am Roäc, son of Kark. Kark is dead, but he was well known to you once. It is 100 years and 53 since I came out of the egg, but I do not forget what my father told me. Now I am the chief of the great ravens of the mountain. We are few, but we remember still the king that was of old. Most of my people are abroad, for there are great tidings in the south. Some are tidings of joy to you, and some you will not think so good. So he really comes to bring them news, right? It's like he's reestablishing the friendship that once existed between the ravens and the dwarves.
Right.
So
yeah. Do you think the thrush summoned him? Like, do you think the thrush was like, "Hey, dude, they can't understand me. You need to go talk to them"?
I think it's possible. I don't know if it ever says that explicitly.
No, I don't think it does. But the way I was curious.
Well, it says, he does say right here. Roäc says, the thrush, may his feathers never fall, saw him die, and we may trust his words. He saw him fall in battle with the men of Esgaroth the third night back from now at the rising of the moon.
Yeah, so clearly they're communicating.
Yeah,
the thrush and the raven.
He apparently heard this through the thrush, right? That Smaug is dead.
Yep.
Smaug is dead. So the raven brings both good news that Smaug is dead, and the treasure is now, safely theirs. But also he brings some bad news that there seem to be people gathering and marching to the mountain, right?
Right, because they want a share in the spoils.
Right.
Yep.
He says, so much for joy, Thorin Oakenshield. You may go back to your halls in safety. All the treasure is yours for the moment, but many are gathering hither beside the birds. The news of the death of the Guardian has already gone far and wide, and the legend of the wealth of Thror has not lost in the telling during many years. Many are eager for a share of the spoil. Then a host of the elves are on the way, and carrion birds are with them, hoping for battle and slaughter. By the lake, men murmur that their sorrows are due to the dwarves, for they are homeless and many have died, and Smaug has destroyed their town. So, and he mentions that, like, look, what's interesting is he mentions you want to deal with this guy Bard and not with the master, right?
Right.
Because he's grim, but he's truthful.
Okay, can we talk about what does grim mean in this context? I feel like grim usually, does it just mean that he's like, because grim usually means like not it's a not positive word, right?
Well,
I mean,
it's more of a way of carrying yourself, and I think for Tolkien, grim is actually like kind of a good thing, right?
that's what I get the impression, but I feel like the way we use grim most often is like almost a foreboding.
Well,
like,
I'll be honest. I think that's because in our age, in our contemporary age, like we care more about like how you present yourself outwardly than like about who you truly are, right? You know, we're maybe overly focused on outward appearances rather than the notion that like maybe that's not as important as who you are on the inside, and that grimness can be a reflection of like a truthfulness and a straightforwardness, right?
Okay.
You know, if I'm like, hey buddy, how you doing? Right? I know you will get like, you know, you're like you know, you immediately are suspicious of a person like that, right?
True.
They use car salesman approach, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I kind of am too, right? I kind of have a sense of like when somebody is being genuine and, you know, and yeah, it's nice when somebody is like outwardly friendly and has a smile on their face and everything like that, but
you can overdo that.
Yeah, you totally can. You can go the
so you think
used car salesman approach.
Yeah. So you think grim here is maybe just being used as like what you see is what you get,
right?
Like just an honest, true person, like not deceitful.
Well, so the definition here is forbidding or uninviting, right? Which again, I think is more of like how we might think of it. And it can be like grim news, like depressing or worrying to consider.
I guess that's what I was thinking of.
But when it turns to your humor, when it comes to like your bearing, right? It's lacking genuine levity, mirthless, black is what it says. When I look it up here.
Lacking what?
Lacking genuine levity. Which again, like levity would be like lightness of spirit.
Okay. So he just may be serious.
Yeah.
Like he's just.
But wouldn't you be too if you were Bard and it's like you were just in like you were just living in this place, right? And it's been destroyed, right?
Yeah, but it described him as grim from the very beginning, even before all the troubles with Smaug. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but again, like I think, and yes, I mean the Raven says as much, right? He says he is grim, but he's true. Right.
So it's just maybe about his disposition.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite. Like he doesn't have a sunny disposition.
Yeah.
You know, he might not be the person you pick out and say, oh, I want to meet him and get to be his friend.
Right.
But once you do get up the courage to approach him, he proves to be loyal.
Right.
And
you can kind of think too, right? It occurs to me that you can maybe think a little bit. You can kind of think about Aragorn in this way.
I was thinking
right?
the same thing. Yeah, Strider, especially like
in fact,
early on.
Yeah. Early on, it's all that glitters is not gold.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But who's more gold in terms of the heart than Aragorn is?
That's true.
Right?
But upon first impressions,
on
outward impressions, he's a little unapproachable.
Right.
You know, he's not someone that you're going to go up and be like, hey, dude, let's be friends.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
He's just a little off-putting in that way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting little sidebar as far as what's entailed by that description. But yeah, that's
in this situation, that's probably the kind of person you want, because the master's really the opposite, right? I mean, he's kind of like he's clearly. I mean, inside, you would probably call him grim, right?
Well,
but on the outside, he's very, he'll pretend to be your best friend.
He's shady. Right?
Tell you what you want to hear.
He's the shady person, right? Like he's he knows how to. He's the smooth operator, knows how to operate, knows how to get himself out of trouble, and even when he deserves to be in trouble,
right?
And so that's the kind of person that the Raven is warning Thorin against, right? You know, you don't want to deal. Honestly, like to have to deal with the Master would have been like a lot of trouble, right? Because
you don't know which way is up with him,
right? Yeah,
you don't know what to trust and what not to trust.
Exactly. You can't be certain that you're getting the real deal, that he's going to keep his word, or if he's going to try to wiggle out of it somehow.
Yeah, those kind of people are just not. Yeah, those are very. Those people are difficult to deal with. Those kind of people, because they can really just end up, pulling the rug out from underneath you. So it's a good thing we got old Bard here.
It is, and yeah, we'll go ahead and move on because I think we'll see more of some of these questions in the later chapters too.
Yeah.
So yeah, Smaug is dead, and the last thing Thorin says to the Raven is, we'd appreciate your continued help and the help of your people, and please go to find anybody that will help us defend the mountain, especially my cousin Dain in the Iron Hills.
Right. Because he's closest.
Right.
And he has many well-armed men.
That's right.
So he would be a good help.
So they're asking for help from anybody who will come because there's only really 14 of them, right? If you count Bilbo right now. And there are a whole lot of potential enemies coming to, to attack the mountain. So,
and what's interesting is I think the Raven's response here to Thorin's request is really, it sets the stage for what's to come, because he says, "I will not say if this counsel be good or bad, but I will do what can be done." Mm-hmm. So like even the Raven is like, "Oh, I'm not sure this is a good idea or not, but." We're friends, so I'll do what I can.
Right.
But clearly there's some, the Raven is clearly not comfortable with the way things are headed.
Yeah. Things could, the clouds are gathering.
The clouds
right?
are gathering.
I mean, that's the perfect way of putting it.
Exactly. Yep. A sense of foreboding.
Yes, indeed. So they begin the process of fortifying the mountain, and they go and they make sure that no other entrances are, have any openings in them. And indeed they don't. The only way in is the front gate. And they begin the process of really fortifying that too, so that it's really difficult to actually get into the front gate.
That's something that dwarves are very good at.
They're
very good at fortifying things.
They absolutely are. Yeah. I mean, what do we say about this? I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. They're fortifying the mountain, making it
very difficult to get in.
Very difficult to get inside.
Yeah.
Because they don't want anybody taking their treasure.
Right. But they found some ponies, so that was exciting.
They did, and they send them back to the men.
They got the food and supplies off of them.
I guess in the way of like trying to. They don't want the men to be able to say anything about like, well, you still got our pony, you still got this or that. It's like we sent him back, right?
Yeah.
We sent him back. We didn't send him back earlier because we didn't want Smaug to get him. We didn't know he was dead. We thought he was still alive. But they do send their ponies back. And then there comes a night, a couple days later, where they start to see the armies approaching, right? The different groups approaching from the south. And as these people get closer, Thorin calls out to them, "Who are you that come as if in war to the gates of Thorin, son of Thrain, king under the mountain, and what do you desire?" This first group of men turns back, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't know, we were already seen or whatever." So, but they can hear kind of the men, and then they hear the elven harps too. So great host of a great host of men and elves is gathering outside the front gate.
Right.
Right. Bilbo is really having none of this, right? He is not happy to be like, he's kind of like, I thought things would be over once the dragon was dead.
Right. Bilbo, I kind of did too.
Yeah.
I thought that was it.
He's like, I made it this far, and now what's going on?
Please just go home.
I know. Can I just have my treasure and go home, please?
I want some tea and biscuits.
That's right. But Thorin is like getting more and more like just like
he's getting wound up.
He's getting getting more and more like grim himself, I guess, about everything. And so the dwarves sing a song to make him feel better. That's much like the song that they had sung long before in Bilbo's little hobbit hole, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll read a couple of stanzas of this.
Do you talk about this in your book?
I was thinking I was a little worried that maybe I missed this one. Can you grab that copy right there? My book, Tolkien's Overture. It's about music in Middle Earth. You should get it and read it. It's right there on close to the bottom. I sell signed copies. Just email me and I'll send you one, and I'll sign it for you. All right, let's see here. I do
Usually
have
what a signed copy
I do
is.
have a section. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Good call.
Yeah.
I do have a section on the dwarves, the music of the dwarves. I have a section on like the music of different races in Middle Earth, and yes, I do. The final dwarf song in The Hobbit is "Under the Mountain, Dark and Tall," which is something like a hymn of triumph. Sung by the dwarves after the death of Smaug, it is also a call for other dwarves to return to Erebor and give aid to the king under the mountain, besieged as he is by the men of Dale and the elves of Mirkwood. It mixes fulfillment of prophecy with a reminder of the greatness of dwarvish culture of yore. It is perhaps the prime example of dwarvish culture and character, martial in rhythm and lyric, boastful even in need, solidly wrought without being elvishly artsy.
Read that last line.
It is perhaps the prime example of dwarvish culture and character, martial in rhythm and lyric, boastful even in need, solidly wrought without being elvishly artsy.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm pretty proud of that
That's
sentence right there.
Really
honestly.
good sentence.
I'm like, dang, did I write that?
That is a
Cool.
well-turned group of words.
I know. I like writing a lot. You know, it's I will say I'm actually mulling over a new book on Tolkien.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't want to say too much right now.
That's exciting.
Actually, I got a couple ideas, but yeah, you know, if you want me to write another one, people send me supportive notes, I guess, and you can include money with them if you want.
Words.
Here's $1 million to write your next Tolkien book. Oh, I love that person. All right. But yeah,
that's a very good way to
thanks for
describe
reminding me of that.
poem.
That makes me feel like really good about myself that I wrote that.
You're welcome.
That's weird, I know.
No, I think that's really good.
That's
not a bad thing.
Yeah.
To be proud of your work. Yeah, so I think that's a really good way to describe this poem. Shall we read some of it?
Yes. Why don't you begin? We'll trade off. Maybe we'll do. I mean, it's not
that
long. It's not super long. I don't want to read it all on here because I don't want to maybe we'll just do 2 stanzas and then the last one.
Okay. Under the mountain dark and tall, the king has come unto his hall. His foe is dead, the worm of dread, and ever so his foes shall fall.
The sword is sharp, the spear is long, the arrow swift, the gate is strong. The heart is bold that looks on gold, the dwarves no more shall suffer wrong.
The king is come unto his hall, under the mountain dark and tall. The worm of dread is slain and dead, and ever so our foes shall fall.
Right on. So this song seems to please Thorin.
Yep.
But Bilbo, it says, his heart fell both at the song and the talk. They sounded much too warlike. Bilbo is like, okay, nice song. And you know, apparently this song sounds like so I think the song it's hearkening back to is Far Away Over the Misty Mountains Cold, right? The one in the first chapter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for Bilbo, this just makes him more uncomfortable because he feels that it's the dwarves. He can kind of detect through this music that the dwarves are becoming more warlike, right?
Yeah.
And you know, Tolkien would have remembered, like, do you remember going to see when we went to see the Tolkien film here recently, the biopic, there's that part where they're like, it's war, right? You know, it's the beginning of
and
of
he's
1914,
at Oxford.
right? And he's at Oxford.
Yeah.
And they're all like
celebrating.
they're all like cheering, like jumping up and down, like they all hug each other, like they're like, oh, what joy, we're going to war.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see, I mean, honestly, I remember after the 9/11 attacks, I was I was a midshipman at the Naval Academy.
Right.
And I still remember, like, so I'm basically surrounded by people, it's like this act of war against our country, right? And everybody's just still reeling from this. And a couple of days later, I think was like when the president gave his first big talk afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of saying, where are we going from here? And I remember there was kind of this sense of like, oh yeah, we're gonna go give it to him, right? And to be sure, that's like a military school, right? So
sure,
I mean,
so that's what. That's not a surprising reaction.
It's not a surprising reaction necessarily, but nevertheless, it's that gung-ho, like, do we really realize what war is?
Exactly. The cost and the price and
it's, it's maybe easy to lose sight of, like, we all too often run to the thought of like glory and like kind of chest beating and that kind of thing about war.
Yeah.
And Bilbo seems to be the only sane one here. Like, I'm not too happy about war, guys. I kind of wish we could just maybe. There's a lot of treasure here. Maybe we can find a peaceful solution
and go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he knows they're not going to go home. He knows the dwarves aren't going to go home.
Right. Well, that's true. But
he wants
to go home. Yeah. And I think it says that he would have given most of his share of the treasure to just drop it all and leave.
Right.
You know, like he definitely does not. He's not up for what these dwarves are thinking about.
Yeah.
Or want to do. And I struggled with that as I was reading this chapter. I was like, I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
These were all friends at one point, not that long ago. And when Thorin says that he doesn't remember the Elven King with much love, I'm like, dude, do you not remember how they helped you and gave you that time of rest in Rivendell? Like,
Well, these are not those elves, though.
Oh, that's true.
These are the wood elves who imprisoned them, right?
Okay, I was thinking that it was Elrond.
No.
It's not Elrond.
No, it's not Elrond.
It's the wood elves. Okay,
yeah, this
now
is Thranduil.
Now I understand better.
Yeah.
I'm getting all my elves confused.
Well,
Easy to do.
It is.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel so bad about myself.
Okay, so let's
Bard
see.
comes.
Yeah, Bard shows up, and he says, I am Bard, and by my hand was the dragon slain and your treasure delivered. So this is called a parley, which is like they're coming to basically like try to establish terms.
Do you say it parlay? Is that how you say it?
Let's look it up.
It sounds kind of like a...
I don't think there's like a super strict pronunciation. Ooh, I got to turn up the volume. Here we go.
Parley.
Oh.
It's like Harley Davidson.
Yeah, but with a P.
I think you can, maybe an old school way would have been
parlay.
Learn to pronounce. What is this?
How to pronounce. What is that one? No. Why
Parley.
is there... What is parley?
Oh, American pronunciation, British pronunciation. Here we go.
Here we go.
Parley.
Parley. We'll just say it like that. Parley.
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 That's neato.
Yeah, it is neato.
So
Tolkien probably said it parley.
Parley.
Parley. So like the R is almost silent. Okay.
Yeah, so Bard is there to parley, and it's time to parley and parley. Parley on, people.
Parley on.
Yeah. He is here to parley about the situation that they face, which is he killed the dragon. He's like, I killed the dragon, dude.
And look what he says before that. He says, why do you fence yourself like a robber in his hold?
Right.
We are not yet foes, and we rejoice that you are alive beyond our hope. We came expecting to find none living here, yet now that we are met, there is a matter for parley and a council. So he makes a very good point here. Mm-hmm. Like, why? Why are you just assuming that we're all enemies?
Well,
he's acting like and Thorin is acting. He's acting like a robber guarding his booty.
Yeah.
It's rightfully his.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? I don't understand his reaction here. I understand that, like, greed's gotten a hold of his heart and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm, like, a little upset with him. Because I'm like, this, this is your, you've conquered and whatever, but it's not like you need to fight a war over this.
This is interesting. This is a really interesting scene because I think it's a little more complex than that. Cause it
probably is.
You think, because we see a little bit of Thorin's own heart, but let's think about this, okay? Bard shows up with basically an army, right?
Yeah.
Bard shows up with an army. He didn't show up with just a small group of people, and they were like, look, I killed the dragon, plus we need help, or at least, like, we really need help down south. You're the king under the mountain. Like, he presents himself in much more of a, like, I am the one who slew the dragon, right? Therefore, right, I deserve recompense for that. And plus, some people really need help. Like, I think a smarter thing to do would have been to appeal to this guy who considers himself the king under the mountain and say like, look, oh great king under the mountain, right? My people need help, right? The dragon destroyed our town. By the way, I killed the dragon to help you, right?
Yeah.
You know, this is something that you didn't have to do this, right?
Right.
And only if push comes to shove do you bring up the notion that like by the way, you're kind of responsible for the dragon destroying our town.
He kind of says that though.
But it's the way in which it's the order in which it's presented, right? Like that's my thing. I totally understand where you're coming from, but to me, Bard errs in that he shows up with like this big army, right?
So he just immediately puts Thorin back on his heels
because
forces him to be on the defense.
Like they're all showing up like. Yeah, exactly. Like you've already put them on the defensive by marching towards the mountain with this big army, right?
But would that have been smart to just show up with a few people? I mean, these are dwarves who, you know, they already have some experience.
But they were already
them,
friends.
And they know what kind of war.
Right?
Like,
They were friendly before, right? In Lake Town.
They were, yeah.
They were friendly before in Lake Town. So why wouldn't you have assumed that they continue to be friendly, especially since you killed the dragon for them?
Yeah.
Right. Now I'm not saying just be completely dumb about it, but I just think it's more complex. I think maybe you can rush to think like Thorin's because we by the third person omniscient narrator we see a lot into Thorin's heart, and we hear Bilbo's own personal concerns, and so that kind of colors our perspective on it.
Yeah.
But to me, Bard errs by showing up with this big army against 13 dwarves, right? Like that looks. Like for somebody who, you know, has journeyed all this way to retake this mountain, right, for his own that is rightfully his, right?
True. Yeah. Yeah.
This looks like the beginning. This looks like a potential act of war, right? Why not have just sent like a small group of people and say like, look, you know, oh great king under the mountain, we're so happy you've returned. We need help. Right, we really need help. And by the way, I'm the guy who killed the dragon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't killed him, he would be back here now, right, killing you. You have all these other things that you can throw into it. Now I don't know. I'm not Mr. Art of Negotiation, so I don't consider myself. But to me, like and I'm not trying to blame Bard for all the problems. I'm just saying like. I think
he could have handled it better.
I think he could have handled it better.
Yeah.
You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I know. I do. I totally do. But I also feel like that Thorin's almost looking for an excuse. Like I think we just talked about like how their you know, their spirits have turned more warlike. You know?
Yeah.
So I think he may be using that and maybe in a way twisting the appearance of all these things and just kind of jumping to the conclusion that, oh, these people are here to fight. You know, and he's not even really hearing. I don't think he really even hears what Bard is saying. He never even responds, really. I mean, he does, but he's just like, you know, even after Bard says, oh, some of that treasure in there, by the way, is ours. You know, like, because after Smaug destroyed Dale, like, he took our stuff and added it to yours. So some of that stuff in there is ours. And by the way, we helped you guys, you know. And even Bilbo, it says that he thought that Thorin would at once admit what justice was in them, because it says these words were fair and true. But
again, I'm not arguing with the specifics of what Bard says, or kind of like the objective reality. But there is a question of the rhetoric, right? The how it's presented, and the rhetoric not only of words but of action too, right? Like you come with an army.
No, I understand.
You come with an army, right? Like that. If you come at somebody with an army, the other side is foolish not to put up a defense, not to be ready for a defense, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Not to be even stoked in their hearts for a defense, right?
And Thorin even says as much. He says, "While an armed host lies before our doors, we look on you as foes and thieves." So I understand what you're saying, but I just feel like there could have been more give and take on both sides.
Surely on both sides. But that's my point, is both sides, right? To me, there's no, I just can't think that like Bard is 100%
innocent. No, I understand.
To me this may be the virtue of not being like, still be a good person inside, right? Still be a straightforward person inside, but maybe understand that the way you carry yourself can have an effect, on how people react to you initially, and how things start out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Body language and tone and all that.
Yeah.
But Thorin still, like, he basically is like, no other man has claimed this treasure. Like, it's all ours.
Right.
You know, so you can tell there's definitely, like, his heart has been, you know, grabbed a hold of.
Oh yeah. There's the gold lust aspect of it too, which I think is really interesting about this. I was thinking about like what it says. He also, I think, speaking of Bilbo, he also did not reckon with the power that gold has upon which a dragon has long brooded, nor with dwarvish hearts. I thought it was really interesting to think about like that. All this treasure as like the dragon, like kind of the dragon has polluted it in a way, right? And what does that actually mean? And I just think about like object, like how the way a person looks at something can lead other people to look at it in a certain way, in that same way, right? And I think this has to do with like fetishes and that kind of thing, right? You know, like like it to me, it's, I don't know. I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff or anything, but I know it's an interesting question of like, you know, there's this, you know, you maybe see it. I feel like I've seen it happen to different things in my lifetime where there's something that like for a while nobody cares about something, and then somebody decides that this is valuable, and all of a sudden everybody wants a piece of it, right? And I think that's a little bit of what Tolkien alludes to here. You know, this idea that like there can be like, well, let's use the place where we live, right? We live in Nashville, Tennessee, right? Or in the area of Nashville, Tennessee, and specifically in Franklin, Tennessee. And 20 years ago, right? I mean, Nashville's always been a fairly well-known city and, you know, fairly decent-sized city. But 20 years ago, it was not like cool to live in Nashville. Now, people are moving here just because it's cool. Yeah. Right?
Well, it is the, you know, country music capital of the world.
And what does that mean, right? Like, and even in Franklin, right? The place where we live, like, literally used to, like, now it's this big suburb of Nashville, right? Basically. But it used to be just this little podunk town, you know, in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was like beyond the frontier of Nashville.
Right. Yeah.
You know, little one stoplight town or something like that. And now it's like got construction everywhere. You know, it's all these places that used to be here, these little like, you know, podunk diners, you know, are gone, and they're building these big hotels and everything. And it's just like 20 years ago, nobody cared about this place, right? Except for the people who lived here.
Yeah.
But some people along the way decided, oh, this would be a really great place. And what are they doing? They're creating this strange kind of lust for this place, right?
Well, I think you can blame a lot of it on, you know, magazines, Southern Living and things like that, who list Franklin and some top 10 list about best places to raise a family, or
totally.
You know, like media goes a long way for that kind of thing.
Yeah, but that's the phenomenon, I feel like is what's being alluded to.
Well,
here.
I know that happens to me too, where I'll be like, have a certain opinion about something, and then someone whose opinion I respect like has a different opinion, and I find myself like, oh, okay, maybe I was wrong.
Well, I think it happens to everybody in different ways. I know for me, there, like, when it comes to like listening to music or something like that, there's sometimes, you know, like a lot of times I discover my own music, but sometimes I'll hear about something and, you know, some album I didn't care about for a long time, and I'll hear from other people that like, oh man, this thing is so great, you got to listen to it. And then all of a sudden I'll just become like, there's something that happens and I become fascinated by it. Right. And a lot of that has to do with the, you know, what other people have said, right? So what other people attribute to it.
Right. Exactly.
But it becomes something that becomes a reality in your mind, which is a fascinating aspect of it, right? It becomes like I'm not faking it. Like I really I'm like, oh yeah, like, you're right.
So is it brainwashing, or is it?
No, I don't think it's brainwashing. I just think it's like an interesting part of like human psychology. Right.
Just of how things can change.
Yeah. And I think there's a spiritual aspect to it as well. Again, like, I mean, I think there's probably people who, not only get like judgmental on anybody, but like, how often do people spend money on like extravagantly on certain things because they're like, oh, I just have to have this, right? Mm-hmm. I just have to have it. It's my precious, right? You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, do they really think like, why do I need to have that?
Yeah.
Like that's an important question to ask yourself, or why do I need to live there? Right.
Mm-hmm. Is it just because everybody else is moving there? Or do I really feel like it'd be a good thing for my family and me?
And the question for Thorin is like, why do you need all this treasure?
Why do you need it all? Exactly.
Right? Like I get it. You're the king under the mountain, and your people created this treasure and that kind of thing. And yes, and so you certainly have a right and a stake to it. But people need your help too. Right.
So do you think the fact that the elves and Bard and the men have shown up wanting some of this gold has just served to increase Thorin's desire for it?
Yes.
So you think that if maybe they hadn't shown up, he would probably just have been, he wouldn't have maybe felt as attached to it.
I mean, I think he was already very attached to it, but I think this just increases his resolve to protect it, right? Mm-hmm. That it's mine. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree.
You're not going to come here and try to tell me what to do with my treasure, right?
And that's another thing. When people start noticing the value of something that you have, it does. It increases the feeling of possessiveness that you have of that thing.
Absolutely. And that's why, like, that's another reason I go back to the thing of, like, I think if Bard had been wiser, he would have realized, like, okay, let's maybe have, because I get there's a balancing act, right? You got the peasants with the pitchforks that are like, we want gold to repair our town, so there's an essence in which politically you've got to keep these people kind of, at bay and everything. But I think Bard could have really been wise to say, like, look, we're going to go and appeal to his better nature first, right? And say, like, we used to be great friends. We used to have this great relationship. I am returning as the king of Dain, as a dragon slayer, and asking for your help, right? Because we have great need of it, right? And only when he's like, no, I'm not going to help you, do you go and you're like, wait a minute.
Dale.
Yeah, King of Dale. I'm sorry, King of Dale.
That's okay.
But this is a cool picture, like the background of my of my computer screen here. Switched to a like cool picture of like mountains and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. Could almost be like where the dwarves are right now.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I still think they both could have handled themselves much better.
Absolutely. I mean, that's without question.
I mean, just one, it's just escalating. Mm-hmm. They're just causing escalation on both sides.
Right.
By their response to one another.
Yeah, no good is going to come of this.
No
good is going to come of this.
None at all.
Well, all right. So, and basically, Bard, so they come back again and they try, they try to kind of appeal, but in a more forceful way to Thorin, and he shoots an arrow through the horn of the person announcing all this.
Yeah, shield.
It's through the shield. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, but yeah, it's not a friendly response.
Says, then Thorin seized a bow of horn and shot an arrow at the speaker. It smote into his shield, and so I was confused about a bow of horn. And then
so there's his answer.
Yeah, and that basically, and to that effect, the armies of men and elves have decided to place the mountain under siege. So
the first shot has been fired.
It's under siege. Too bad the dwarves don't have Steven Seagal on their side.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about, by the way?
Nope. But I'm gonna pretend like I do.
The movie we should watch that movie sometime. It's a fun movie. Under Siege. It came out in like early 90s. You know who Steven Seagal is? He's like a martial arts.
I know the name.
He's kind of like a he's kind of like a Chuck Norris kind of figure.
Okay.
But more like he doesn't have the red hair and the beard. He's like got the dark hair and
I'd probably recognize him if I saw him. I just don't know his name.
Anyway, it's a fun movie. It's like Under Siege is like, oh, you like Die Hard, so it's like Die Hard on a battleship. That's what they always said about it.
Oh.
It's like Die Hard on a battleship.
I probably would enjoy that very much.
Just a cook. All right. So, any final thoughts on this chapter, Greta?
No, I just really I like the way it ended. Where it said, Bilbo, of course, disapproved of the whole turn of affairs. He had by now had more than enough of the mountain, and being besieged inside it was not at all to his taste.
Yeah, Bilbo really is kind of...
He's over it.
Well,
he's done.
And the thing is, too, he's kind of been more in the background in the last few chapters.
Yeah, he's not been... Although it does mention earlier, I forgot to mention this, where it's, just talking about the whole notion of greed and reputation and, pride. Mm-hmm. It mentions in here when Bard is bragging about being the one that killed the dragon. It says in here, Bilbo's like, I wonder if anybody remembers who it was that discovered the dragon's weakness in the first place.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, probably not, but I'm used to it, so whatever.
Well, and it's interesting because with Bilbo and being in the background, but we do see some, kind of hear his perspective on a lot of things. You do get this sense that like, it's part of the theme that becomes so much more important in Lord of the Rings, where it's like the this kind of lesser character in terms of stature, right? And what people expect of him is kind of caught up in all of this, but he turns out to be like, and I think we'll see this in the coming chapters. He turns out to be very important in a happy ending, in achieving the happy ending, right? Much like happens in Lord of the Rings, right? It's that whole, what's my quote from the Waldman letter? I'll butcher it, but the wheels of the world, right? Turned not by the lords and the governors, but by the
right.
The small and innocent. But that's not the exact quote, but that's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a little bit of that going on here.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Alrighty, Rudy.
Let's do a little haiku.
All right, let's do it. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
Alrighty.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Ah, you got me.
I win.
All right.
You go first.
Me? Okay.
Yeah, you.
Shall Smaug return with rage to the mountain? Quoth the Raven, nevermore.
Oh, that's a good one. Adding in some Poe.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it very well. Well done.
Thank you.
Very well done. All right, here's mine. Hearts. Blah, blah. I'm going to start over. Okay. Hearts besieged by a golden greed, turn friend to foe, arrow shot from bow.
Nice.
Well, it rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's true.
We know this is true because it rhymes.
This is true because it rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Well done.
Thank you. Same to you.
I wanted to read another poem by Joe Towns.
Oh, right on.
Joe Tasmania Towns. And the Tasmaniac. Let's see, because he sent us a lot, and I really liked this one. It's called Entish Wake. I think, Joe, I'm reading this in right order. I'm starting on the left and going right, but he sent me a couple of pictures of trees that he thought looked like Ents.
Oh, yeah.
Which are really cool looking trees.
They're very cool.
So here we go. Trees be wreath, lungs reach out, wind pipe up, trunks stand out. Bronchi be ranch, spread about, bronchiole up, alveoli out. Airs bequeath, shade shine down, sky bequest, shadow be crown. Breath beneath, roam around, end together, stamp the ground. Unslow be haste, drink the deeps, mountains moan, herd be leaps. Undamned be wrath of rage or more, be waking horde now herd to war. Shape be shift, steal not away, sneak in upon the orcs be fey. Dark be wrap, doom our prey, engulf and clap our vengeance day.
I like that a lot.
Very cool.
As a nurse, I appreciate all the anatomical terms at the beginning.
This is like
well
lung stuff, right?
Yeah, lung stuff.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Bronchi and bronchioli and alveoli.
Yeah.
Good.
Very cool.
Bronchiole up. I like that.
Yeah. Again, thanks so much for sharing your
very,
poetry
very
with
much.
us, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, let's see here. So I do have some. We have some correspondence that I'm not going to get to on this episode. That'll be a later episode. I wanted to catch up on a couple of things that have been sent through our Facebook page. Just because I haven't gotten to those in recent ones, and they've been out there for a while. So first of all, shout out to Robert Franks, who is one of our patrons, and he shared a few thoughts on. This is back in late May. He shared a few thoughts on. Where is it? No, I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh, wait, here we go. He shared a few thoughts on... Siri, I'm not talking to you.
Finish the sentence.
Oh, Siri interrupted me. He shared a few thoughts on. Okay.
You're
right.
like a Chris Farley skit right now.
I says to him, get a load of this. I says,
yeah.
Great little sketch if you ever get a chance to watch it. All right. Robert Franks, he says, I'm not sure which episode this was in reference to, but he says, sorry, another great episode. I wanted to make a comment on Greta wondering if the Arkenstone was related to the Silmarils. I know that they can't be a Silmaril due to one being with Arendelle, one being cast into the sea, and one being plunged deep into the earth. Also, I believe it is said in the Hobbit that it was crafted by dwarves, so that would make it something else entirely. With all that being said, I am almost uncertain I have read somewhere that the Arkenstone was inspired by the Silmarils, and Tolkien added it to the story because he did not think the Silmarillion would ever see publication. I hope that helps, and keep up the great work. And I know, I think David Bigwood weighed in on this too last week.
So yeah, I remember talking about it.
And some correspondence. So I wanted to get Robert's thoughts out there too. I'm going to put in the show notes a link to, I think there's a discussion on Tolkien Gateway about the Arkenstone of Silmarillion, which goes into a lot of deep thought for people who want to explore this issue in much more detail.
I like that idea that he that it may have been put in the Hobbit because he thought Tolkien thought Silmarillion might not ever be published.
Right.
So that's really interesting.
That is definitely very interesting.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Thanks, Robert.
Most def. And then a couple of notes from one of our longtime listener, Greg Simonson. I realized I felt bad because he always comments on the Facebook page, on the Facebook post for the episode, and I forget to give him a shout out. So I know he's given us a lot of comments on the last several episodes. So I just wanted to give him a shout out and say thanks for the communication. He notes that the Battle of Esgaroth is one of his favorite parts of The Hobbit, and I liked where he says, in talking about the previous chapter, he had said, admittedly, not much exciting happens in this chapter, but if it is boring, it is Tolkien boring, which is a lot better than insert your least favorite author here, boring.
That is
one of the
true
things
story.
I love about Tolkien is even his prose has a poetic quality to it, which we wholeheartedly agree
Absolutely.
with. So if I got to read something boring, I'd much rather it be Tolkien than
yeah.
anybody else. So wholeheartedly agree with you there, Greg. So thanks for your correspondence.
Yeah, thank you.
And we appreciate you as we appreciate all of our listeners.
Very, very much.
All right. Don't forget to leave us that 5-star review on iTunes or your favorite app, podcast listening app of choice. And thanks again to all our patrons. You all rock. By the way, just to be clear, it's actually very easy if you're on an iPhone to go in. It's actually not iTunes that you leave the review on. You go into the podcast app on the iPhone, and you can just find our podcast and then scroll all the way down and rate and press 5 stars. It's literally that easy. So, do it today if you haven't done it yet.
Please.
Before you forget.
Yes. Do it while you're thinking about it. That's what my mom always told me.
Be hasty.
Do it while it's on your mind.
Yes. In this case, it's a good time to be hasty to do it.
It is. Yes.
So. All right. Any other thoughts before we close this one out?
I think that's a wrap.
All right. Thanks to all our patrons. You all rock. Al Taylor, Andrew Herbert, Andrew Thomas, Azia Veneer, Bethany Engler, Brendan Corkery, Brian Orr, Kat Lane, Chris Loftus, Chuck Farnung, Daniel Delaney, David Bigwood, David Dickinson, Emilio Perea, Eric Bessette, Hunter Johns, Ish of the Hammer, James Applegate, James Lindberg, Joe Towns, John Rice, Josh Sosa, Lawrence McGowan, Margaret Lyon, Matt Scarrance, Robert Franks, Sarah Murphy, Shannon Stockbridge, Teresa Colangelo, Travis Lawheed, Ty Miller, Dr. William Hutton, and Zeke Farmer. Again, I know that some of those folks had sent us notes between this episode and last episode, and we'll definitely get to those probably on the next episode.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to.
All right. Most definitely. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thanks, guys.
We will talk at you next time.
Indeed we will.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Forgot to cue up the music to go out here. Let's do that. There we go. Bye for real this time.
For reals.